Picture this. What if a single drone could cripple the heart of an energy giant, turning pumps dry and igniting fires that roar like angry dragons across vast lands? Imagine the smell of burning oil lingering in the air, thick and acrid, while ordinary people clutch their keys at empty gas stations, their patience fraying like worn tires on icy roads. Since August, Ukrainian drones have hammered at least 16 of Russia's 38 oil refineries in over 24 relentless assaults. In the grinding war that drags on, these strikes twist like a knife, exposing vulnerabilities in the so-called superpower's core. As we fade in from that opening shock, let's recap the setup. Vladimir Putin's grand invasion plan back in February 2022 crumbled into a brutal stalemate. Instead of swift victory, Russia faces a deadly exchange of blows on energy fronts. Eyes widen at the mounting toll inside Russia, where Western experts whisper of collapse. Who's truly winning this shadow battle? Could these strikes flip the war's tides forever? Now, venture deeper into the chaos. Has the world's energy behemoth stumbled into its worst nightmare, where buzzing invaders from afar humiliate a nation's pride? Feel the rumble underfoot as explosions echo, the scorched earth crunching beneath boots in Crimea, Belgorod, and Krasnodar. Long lines snake endlessly, honking horns a deafening symphony of frustration. Pumps sputter vainly, hands gripping handles tighter in desperation. Putin's rubber-stamped decision unleashed this horror, envisioned as a triumphant march. Yet, almost 4 years in, attrition grinds bones in eastern Ukraine. A vicious cycle of long-range destruction targets lifeblood facilities. Analysts shout warnings, implosion looms. What damage festers, and how does Russia claw back? Watch closely. As twists unfold, one question burns: who will break first in this energy maelstrom? Recapping that gripping escalation, we see the strikes intensifying pain points across regions. Teasing potential unrest, the narrative turns. Dive into the heart of underbelly attacks. Isn't it maddening how a few unseen flyers could expose Russia's Achilles heel so savagely? Picture the Ryazan refinery's fate on October 23, Moscow Oblast's fuel lifeline, fourth largest in the land. Processing 13.1 million tons in 2024, it claimed 5% of capacity. Flames erupted after the third 2025 hit, engulfing the primary processing unit's 4 million tons yearly yield, 80,000 barrels daily. Shutdown cascaded, halting reformer, vacuum gas oil hydrotreater, catalytic cracker. The roar of fire devours tranquility. Sour fumes sting nostrils, leaving skin clammy from heat waves. Will this cripple Moscow's edge, or ignite a fierce comeback? The next blow shocks even deeper. From that refinery inferno's ashes, the plot thickens. Double troubles pile on. Brace for southern fury unleashed. Can you hear the distant hum turning into a specter's wail, mocking Russia's reach? Just nights prior, Mahakala's Dagnatech refinery fell, 850 miles from Ryazan's blight. Ukrainian intel confirms, primary unit shattered, blaze raging. Smaller at 1 million tons. Yet vital for Caucasus military flows. Once owned by Sultan Magomedov's kin after fraud scandals, now state's shadow. The crackle of flames dances with salt air, acrid smoke blending sea mist. Diesel veins ache for chop. Sources say damage lingers. What unseen logistics now bleed? Twists await in western Russia's torment. Shifting from the south's harsh wake. Enter western woes, relentless and cruel. Why does a superpower tremble, exposed to humble metal bird's spite? October 19, doubled agony. Samara Oblast's Novokuybishevsky plant hit second time swiftly. Firestorm scarred ABT-11 primary unit, gasoline tank, transformer. Shutdown froze ABT-11 at 18,900 tons daily, ABT-9 at 4,700. Idled till November. Flames hiss and spit, engulfing units. The scent of charred metal sticks to fingertips. Concurrently, Orenburg's gas behemoth struck in Kolodezhnaya. Reuters notes 37.5 billion cubic meters capacity, world's titan. Weeks prior, nearby Orsk Nefteorgsen's refinery smoke-choked skies. Annual 6.6 million tons, birthing 30 petroleum varieties. Oil aroma haunts valleys. How long till collapse? Cliffhangers loom. Amid these blows, resonance builds. Roll into Bashkortostan's blaze. Does vulnerability reverberate louder than echoes, shaming an empire's facade? October 12 unleashed upon Ufa's Bashneft giants, Ufaneftikim, Novoyufimsky, Ufa Novoil. 500,000 barrels combined. AVT-5 core damaged. Black smoke plumes taunt horizons. Simmering heat prickles skin. Strikes rippled since early October, Antipinsky in Tyumen, Slavneft in Yaroslavl, Rosneft-Zakinsk. Karishi's Lenin Rayon. Karishi suspends 40%. Crimea's Fyodossia terminal, October 13, 5 tanks aflame, satellite scars persist. All forged from August's barrage. Summer timing hits hardest, holidays and harvests straining supplies. Output dropped to 4.86 million barrels daily, 10% July slump, 5-year low. Prices surged 2.58% September, 2018 peak monthly. Annually 12.73%, 14-year sprint. BBC uncovered 57 regions disrupted, some easing. Reuters, Bloomberg, S&P, 10 businesses shuttered. Carnegie analyst Vakulemko eyed 10% productivity fall. Zelensky boasts 20% refinery reduction. Gasoline grids wobble, military diesel steadier. Home fronts and markets suffer, dissent brews. Peskov claims unity, yet burdens weigh heavy. Kazakhstan's 2022 unrest over gas spikes, Russian aid summoned. Nazarbayev ousted. Putin scrambles, banning exports to stabilize. But resilience slips? Rhetoric questions deep in despair. From fuel famine's grip. Tease potential upheaval sting. Building on the devastation at Ryazan's oil refinery, where a Ukrainian drone ignited a raging fire in its primary processing unit with a 4 million ton yearly capacity, forcing shutdowns across key neighbors like the reformer and vacuum gas oil hydrotreater. Imagine the roar of turbines serenading the Caspian Sea, only for that harmony to shatter into chaos. Has Ukraine just severed Russia's lifeline to the Caucasus, leaving its mighty Caspian fleet gasping for fuel? The night before, Ukrainian drones pierced the dusk, targeting the small but crucial Dagnotech oil refinery in Makhachkala, Dagestan. Nestled 850 miles from the Ryazan assault, this facility pulsed with the hum of industry. But Ukrainian military intelligence whispered the truth to the Keep Independent. A devastating hit crippled the primary oil processing unit, sparking a colossal blaze that danced with orange fury, its acrid smoke choking the horizon, stinging eyes and throats for miles. Feel the heat, hear the crackle of flames devouring steel, the scent of burning oil thick and foul, like victory's bitter taste. Though dwarfed at 1 million tons annually, Dagnotech wasn't just another cog. It fueled Russia's southern energy empire, powering military convoys to the Caucasus, keeping the Caspian fleet afloat in volatile waters. Think of it, diesel veins throbbing through rocky landscapes, now severed. But here's the twist, this refinery once belonged to the family of Magomedov, Sultan Magomedov, the notorious ex-secretary of Dagestan, mired in scandal. Exposed for massive fraud and corruption, his hold crumbled. And the state snatched control in August. Did Ukraine exploit this moment of weakness, turning old sins into new wounds? The question hangs, how much farther will this domino fall, humiliating Russia's corrupt heart? A few nights prior, on October 19, double agony reigned on Russia's refineries, a brutal reminder, don't underestimate the underdog. Hammering home the chaos at Dagnotech, where corruption's shadow met drone-fueled fire, crippling a 1 million ton facility vital to the Caucasus. Why does this feel like Russia's empire cracking under its own weight? That same evening unleashed havoc. At least one Ukrainian drone dove into the Novokupskaya Ohil refinery in Samara Oblast, its second strike in weeks, etching humiliation deeper. Explosions shattered the night, flames erupting like vengeful ghosts, engulfing the main primary crude unit, ABT-11, along with a gasoline tank and electrical transformer. The air thickened with sulfurous fumes, the ground vibrating under shock waves, a tactile punch to the gut as panic rippled through workers fleeing the blistering heat. Operations halted completely, both units silenced, their mechanical pulses gone. ABT-11 processed 18,900 tons daily, while ABT-9 handled 4,700, now zero. Sources grimly predict downtime until November at least, a financial hemorrhage widened by idle machines. Picture the refinery skeleton, once gleaming, now scarred. Was this the tipping point, Russia's defenses as brittle as glass? Shockingly, in western Russia that very night, another Ukrainian drone assaulted the Orenburg gas processing plant in Kolodniyek village. Echoing the double strikes on October 19, where Novokupskay's fiery inferno exposed Russia's vulnerability, scalding units and tanks, what explosive twist could ignite even more outrage, flipping the script on Putin's unyielding front? In that Orenburg stronghold, home to the planet's largest gas chemical behemoth, processing 37.5 billion cubic meters yearly, the strike echoed like thunder. The village, tranquil no moment longer, bore the brunt of Ukraine's fury, mills grinding to halt, air poisoned by escaping gases, the sharp tang of chemicals burning nostrils. Just weeks earlier, the area tasted retribution again. A drone smashed into the Orsteniyevdyorg Synthos oil refinery, a pillar processing 6.6 million tons annually. Black smoke billowed skyward, a dark banner signaling defeat, curdling the air with petroleum's cloying haze. Producing 30 types of fuel, from gasoline to jet fuel, diesel to fuel oil, this giant's veins pumped lifeblood, but now? Trimmed to nothing, leaving Russians to ponder, is Ukraine unraveling a superpower thread by thread? The previous analysis highlighted the devastating impact of Ukrainian drone strikes on Russian oil facilities. With major refineries in the Orenburg region damaged, a shocking pattern of destruction has emerged, leading to significant disruptions in Russia's energy infrastructure. As the conflict escalates, the repercussions extend far beyond military targets, affecting the everyday lives of ordinary Russian citizens. Now, on October 12, all eyes turn to Ufa and the Republic of Bashkortostan. A UAV unmanned aerial vehicle targeted one of the key Bashnef refineries, known for processing a significant amount of oil. This facility operates 3 major refineries, which together boast a staggering capacity of nearly 500,000 barrels each day. The blow was hard, as the critical AVT-5 refining unit sustained considerable damage. It could have contributed to an efficient production cycle, but now, the flames wreaked havoc, casting a haunting glow over the landscape. As the dust settled, Ukrainian drones continued their relentless attack. The targeted strikes extended across Russia, impacting vital facilities like the Antipinsky refinery in Tyumen and the Rosneft-Tuapse refinery. When a fire erupted at the Kiev refinery in Leningrad, it forced a shutdown of its main processing unit, crippling 40% of its oil capacity. Each assault seemed calculated, a strategic chess game playing out in the sky, with Russia's energy lifeline at stake. Further complicating matters, a massive strike on October 13 targeted the Feodosia oil terminal in the strategic Crimea Peninsula. Long-range drones struck multiple storage tanks, igniting a fire so severe that satellite images captured the blaze flickering in the dark. The energy chaos was so palpable, one could almost feel the tension in the air, a mixture of fear and uncertainty rippling through the populace. These October attacks are not isolated events but rather a continuation of a vigorous campaign that Ukraine initiated back in August. The repercussions on Russia's economy were becoming increasingly evident. Analysts like Dr. Richard Connolly emphasized the damage inflicted by these strikes, suggesting that Ukraine's summer offensive was far more impactful than previous efforts. He noted, with urgency, that the timing of these attacks coincides with a period of peak fuel demand in Russia. As families travel and farmers harvest, the pressure on already strained fuel supplies could push the situation toward catastrophe. How much longer can Russia sustain this assault on its energy infrastructure? With gas prices surging and supplies dwindling, could this be the tipping point that ignites unrest among an already anxious citizenry? The shadows of discontent loom larger, and the decisions made in the Kremlin could resonate beyond geopolitical strategies, into the hearts of everyday people. As escalations continue, the stakes have never been higher. As the war drags on, a stunning pattern emerges. Ukrainian drones are zeroing in on Russian oil refineries, disrupting the lifeblood of the Russian economy. With each strike, the energy superpower faces embarrassing fuel shortages, impacting ordinary citizens and military logistics alike. This relentless campaign raises a shocking question: is Ukraine turning the tide in this brutal conflict? In a grim reality, escalating drone attacks have targeted at least 16 out of 38 oil refineries since August. These strikes have left many of these facilities in ruins, with the Ryazan oil refinery, the fourth largest in Russia, going up in flames just days ago. Processing over 13 million tons of oil annually, its shutdown sends ripples through an already strained fuel supply chain. Not far behind, the Dagnatek oil refinery in Dagestan also succumbed to flames, showcasing the relentless precision of Ukrainian forces even hundreds of miles away. The pain didn't stop there. Just a couple of nights ago, fire raged at the Novakubi oil refinery in Samara, shattering its capacity to refine crude. The resulting chaos was evident as thick plumes of smoke filled the air, a clear signal of the ongoing turmoil. Multiple refineries across Russia now sit idle due to these drone strikes. Yet, with every explosion, a quiet tension builds within Russia's borders. Could this be the beginning of a broader societal unrest, reminiscent of Kazakhstan's recent upheaval? The repercussions extend beyond the battlefield. As fuel supplies dwindle, prices soar. A staggering 12.73% annual increase is reported, the highest in over a decade. Over 57 regions are grappling with intermittent fuel shortages, illuminating a disaster waiting to unfold. Families, farmers, and businesses are feeling the strain. With shortages looming, a question arises: how long can public support for President Putin hold strong when citizens are left facing empty pumps? Recently, Russian officials have scrambled to stabilize the situation, implementing a ban on gasoline exports. The stakes couldn't be higher, as citizens grow increasingly restive and a potential revolution simmers beneath the surface. Could the Pentagon be watching with bated breath, pondering the possibility of a new wave of chaos within Russia? The very fabric of the Russian state is at risk, opening a door to unforeseen consequences beyond the battlefield. In a world where energy giants tremble, long queues at gas stations and flickering lights tell a tale of vulnerability. Russians face soaring prices and disruptions, all from Ukraine's relentless drone assaults on their refineries. Putin, who once dreamed of swift victory, now watches his superpower falter, scrambling to stabilize the chaos. To keep fuel flowing locally, the Kremlin banned exports of gasoline and diesel, hoping to quench domestic thirst. What shocking secret lies behind Russia's export ban, turning the world's oil titan into a desperate importer? Imagine the roar of engines on empty roads, the acrid smell of unburned fuel in the air, and the cold grip of uncertainty tightening around every driver's wallet. That's the raw reality now, as Moscow fights to save face. This ban kicked off in September 2023, supposedly to crush price spikes during harvest time, when reports of fuel droughts plagued the south. Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak vowed radical steps against hikes, fueled by inflation and global oil surges. Oil prices dipped since then, yet the export block endured. Novak extended it in late September 2025, targeting exporters and producers to steady the market amid the ongoing Ukrainian barrage. Expert Richard Connolly explains it doesn't drain war chests as feared. Russia cranks up crude output instead of refining, swapping lost export cash for what might even net more profits, depending on prices. But diverting export fuel hasn't fixed the shortages at all. If it had, why the surge in imports? Yes, this powerhouse now buys gasoline abroad to patch the gaping wound. Their key ally, Belarus, steps in with shipments, mostly from Russian oil refined on their soil. Last year saw an uptick in imports for shortfalls, but nothing like today's flood. Rail-transported gasoline from Belarus to Russia quadrupled month-over-month in September, hitting 49,000 metric tons, or 14,500 barrels daily. Transit through Russia rose about 1% last month to 140,000 tons, plugging holes where the export ban cut supply. Belarus boasts two refineries, the Naftin and the Moser oil refineries. Each churns out around 240,000 barrels per day annually, but usually less, providing a lifeline in this frag jumper crisis. Feel the sting of unanswered pleas. How long until Putin admits defeat, or worse, sparks unrest like Kazakhstan's fuel-fueled revolt? The tactile buzz of anxious whispers in crowded queues, mingled with the stench of idling cars. Is Russia's empire cracking under the weight of its own hubris? Beyond Belarus, Russia courts other sources too. Imports from Kazakhstan ticked up, easing some strain. Yet, this reversal of fortunes, pouring billions into fuel wars while refineries burn, paints a picture of a behemoth buckling. Ordinary folk endure the burn, higher costs, longer waits, fraying patience. Zelensky's strikes chip away, not just at infrastructure, but at Putin's iron grip. What unseen ally will emerge next, or will chaos engulf the pumps entirely? The air grows thick with tension, every drone hum a symphony of defiance. Will Moscow's patchwork fixes hold, or ignite a firestorm? In the last segment, Energy Minister Novak proposed slashing import duties to zero on gasoline from China, South Korea, and Singapore. These imports would flow only through select Far East checkpoints, restricted to authorized firms like Rosneft and state entities. Gasoline prices had surged for 9 weeks straight, but only up 10% so far that year, outpacing inflation in Ukraine, yet not enough to ignite full outrage. Ukraine strikes were disrupting key regions, but the full impact lingered. Can you imagine the choking stench of polluted air and the roar of desperate engines idling in endless queues, as Russia's fuel lifeline teeters on the edge of collapse from distant drones? What if one controversial chemical could save the day, but poison the soul of a nation's environment? Shocking truth, Ukraine's relentless attacks have crippled Moscow's refineries, forcing desperate gambles that humiliate Putin's ancient regime, leaving ordinary Russians gasping in the fumes of a disintegrating empire. To bridge this gaping fuel void, Novak eyed imports as a lifeline. He suggested permitting the use of monomethylaniline, or MMI, an octane-boosting additive, for gasoline production over the next 6 months. Why risk tainting the air we breathe? His plan aimed to inject at least 350,000 tons of gasoline and 100,000 tons of diesel into the market each month. Mixing MMI into low-octane fuel would churn out extra 50,000 tons of high-grade Class 5 gasoline, he claimed. But whispers of regret lingered, after all. This additive had been outlawed in Russia since 2016 to align with strict European emissions rules. Is this the bitter taste of defeat, the sooty fallout of a war gone wrong? The acrid burn in your throat from fumes clinging to the skin, the rumble of pumps failing under the strain, all because the European Union's turn away from Russian hydrocarbons makes compliance with clean standards feel obsolete. As Ukraine strikes intensify, desperation breeds innovation, or folly. These moves signaled a crack in confidence, a market bandage over raw fear. In a similar vein, reports claim Russian authorities seized an energy company, Obalcom and Enigo, from 2 billionaire oligarchs, handing it back to state control. Desperate measures to prop up a crumbling structure, etched in the sting of betrayal. Yet, amid the chaos, voices like Dr. Connolly's urge a pause. Cues and import please? Not signs of imminent implosion, he whispers. Gasoline prices soared to record highs all summer. From January to September 2025, the national average at pumps climbed 8.36%, more than double the 4.16% inflation rate, per official Rosstat data. As early October approached, retail. Did Putin's once mighty empire just humble itself by begging for banned additives, all while the oligarch's empires crumble in his grasp? Tune in next time, as the fuel crisis twists into even deeper humiliation. What hidden pain will Russia endure when the additives fail? We've covered the chaos unleashed by Ukrainian drone attacks on Russia's critical oil refineries, from the blazing infernos in Ryazan and Dagestan to the crippling aftermath in Samara and Oriol, where shattered dreams of dominance are turning into crumbling nightmares. Russia's energy giant, once feared, now scrambles to patch up the flames, but what if one shocking fact could shatter Putin's facade forever? Imagine the guttural roar of exploding tanks echoing through the night, the acrid stench of burning crude oil choking the air, the sticky residue clinging to skin. Have you ever wondered how close Putin is to feeling the sting of his own hubris? In that memory, I recall a scorching summer day in Moscow, the metallic tang of diesel mingling with the distant hum of traffic, where gas pumps whispered of fragility, promising pockets of normalcy amid global scorn. Gas prices surged past inflation for the ninth straight week, a mere 9.9% hike year-to-date. That's tiny compared to Ukraine's turmoil, hardly enough to ignite mob fury. Ukraine's strike sparked turmoil in distant corners, the vast Far East, icy Crimea, war-torn Donetsk, where isolation breeds bottled resentment. Videos from wandering travelers reveal Moscow, St. Petersburg, Kazan untouched by the silent siege. These pulsing heartlands demand disruption to force Putin's hand at talks that favor Ukraine's stance. Yet, per Dr. Connolly, Ukraine's onslaught lacks the ferocity to shatter Russia completely. Vast expanses force drones to skim with paltry payloads, under 200 pounds each, a mere slap against armor giants. Refineries shield themselves, compartmentalizing volatile treasures, sprawling like fortresses of flame. A 300-pound blast ignites hellish fires, halts streams, but rarely silences the beast entirely. Repairs snap back swift as a predator's strike. Vakulenko from the Carnegie Russia-Eurasia Center aligns, noting most plants roar near full throttle within 7 days. Picture the twist, as Russians clutch wallets tighter. Could this be the hidden knife turning loyalists into rage? The air thickens with unheard whispers of dissent. What if the next strike isn't enough, but sparks a wildfire no net can contain? Did you know that Russian fuel shortages are hitting so hard that families huddle by flickering lamplights, smelling acrid smoke from rationed gasoline, as ordinary citizens question if their leader's grand vision is crumbling into chaos? Let's peel back the layers of this shocking conflict, where drone strikes sting like relentless hornets, humiliating a superpower's defenses and twisting the war into an unexpected tale of internal breakdown. In this riveting journey through shadows of sabotage, feel the tremble of the earth underfoot as refineries ignite, hear the roar of fires defying Putin's proclamations, and grasp how Ukraine's far-reaching assault is reshaping empires from within. As we dive deeper, imagine the terror gripping the Kremlin halls. Vladimir Putin, the iron-fisted ruler who dreamt of swift triumph in Ukraine back in February. Imagine this, a booming fireball erupting from a refinery, the acrid stench of burning fuel choking the air, and Vladimir Putin grinning from his bunker, thinking a quick invasion would crush Ukraine. But 4 years in, the tables turned wildly. Ukrainian drones, like relentless predators, pummeled Russia's energy heart. Over 16 refineries scorched since August alone, more than 24 attacks. Panic grips Russians as gas pumps run dry, prices soar, and whispers of revolt echo from Kazakhstan's shadows. Yet, Putin scrambles bands and boasts unity. What happens when hungry bears wake up from hibernation? Could Zelensky be exaggerating his claims of a 20% cut in Russia's oil refining capacity? Or did October's blasts truly amplify damage? Either way, ordinary Russians endure mayhem at the pumps. Their daily commutes grind to a halt amid swirling dust and impatient honks. Diesel-fueled military jeeps rumble onward, unfazed, but gasoline droughts crush civilians bitterly. Putin's war, once distant thunder, now slams home with wallet-shrinking hikes and snarled traffic. Flashback to January 2022, Kazakhstan, the sharp bite of frigid winds carrying the smoke of torched buildings, screams blending with clashes as liquefied petroleum gas price spikes ignited chaos. Looting erupted, government edifices crumbled under fiery onslaught, forcing Nursultan Nazarbayev to flee after decades. Putin's troops marched in to quench the flames. Here in Russia, disgruntled masses grumble loudly. Will fuel scarcity and price spikes light the same fuse? Kremlin mouthpiece Dmitry Peskov insists unity prevails, no burden too heavy. Reality bites hard, and with economic upheaval, that facade might shatter like brittle ice. Sitting there fuming, watching his people suffer acute pangs from Ukraine's guerrilla war, Putin desperately clamps down. Bans on gasoline and diesel exports kicked off in September 2023 to fend off sudden shortages during harvest. Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak vows radical curbs on roaring price surges. But will hoarding rumors panic bulk buyers, or imported fuel ease the sting? As refinery output dips 10% from July peaks, per Syuri Vakulenko at Carnegie Europe, chaos lingers at pumps. Zelensky's boasts of double devastation taunt Russia's humiliation. Imagine the unthinkable, domestic unrest mirroring Kazakhstan's firestorm. What dark twist awaits as drones keep circling? The situation in Russia is becoming increasingly dire, marked by another Ukrainian drone strike targeting a key oil refinery. This event has evolved into something almost routine, with Ukrainians relentlessly striking oil facilities deep within Russia. As a consequence, long lines for gasoline have emerged in crucial regions like Crimea, Belgorod, and Krasnodar. This troubling development poses a significant dilemma for Russian President Vladimir Putin, who anticipated a swift victory when he initiated the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Now, nearly 4 years later, what was expected to be a lightning-fast campaign has devolved into a prolonged and bloody conflict. A war of attrition rages on in eastern Ukraine, compounded by retaliatory strikes on energy infrastructure. Analysts suggest that these targeted assaults on oil refineries are causing serious disruptions within Russia, pointing to larger issues at play. Since August, strikes have impacted at least 16 out of 38 Russian oil refineries, with over 24 attacks reported. The Ryazan facility, one of the key players supplying fuel to the Moscow region, was recently hit, resulting in extensive damage. Following the airstrike, a fire erupted as critical processing units were compromised. This devastation caused an immediate halt to operations, ultimately affecting neighboring units vital for energy production. But these strikes are not isolated incidents. Just days prior, another drone targeted the Dagnatek refinery in Dagestan, while simultaneous attacks were occurring at refineries in Samara and Orenburg regions, leaving a trail of chaos. The tension in the air was palpable as alarm bells rang over fuel shortages and skyrocketing gasoline prices. Over the past few months, the strain on Russian energy supplies became evident, leading to rising costs and citizens facing the brunt of the crisis. Amid this chaos, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky hinted that the sustained strikes have led to a blow to Russia's refining capacity by as much as 20%. Is it panic or reality? The answer still lingers in the air like smoke from the fires of the attacked refineries. The impact on ordinary Russians is becoming glaringly apparent. Fuel shortages at gas stations resonate painfully with the populace, stirring discontent towards the ongoing conflict. If citizens continue to feel the pinch of rising fuel prices, what does this mean for the war effort? In an attempt to stabilize the situation, the Russian government has resorted to exporting restrictions on fuel. Yet, will this be enough to quell the growing unrest sparked by an economy strained to its limits? Or could this tension mirror historical precedents, reverberating through the streets of Russia? It seems the Kremlin's facade of control is dimming. The mounting challenges reveal vulnerabilities that could undermine Putin's power. The reality is, this war is fracturing more than just borders, it's shaking the very foundation of Russian stability. As the country braces for what lies ahead, the world watches closely. Will Ukraine's strategic strikes continue to reshape the battlefield, leading to more critical changes, or will Russia's retaliatory tactics turn the tide? Every day brings unsettling news from the conflict zone, and today is no different. Ukrainian drones, relentless and cunning, have struck deep into Russia's territory, targeting vital oil refineries and unraveling the fabric of its energy security. Where once there flowed an abundance of fuel, now a sense of chaos spreads, extending beyond the borders of the battlefield into the hearts of everyday citizens. Imagine the scene: a line of vehicles snakes around gas stations in Crimea, Belgorod, and Krasnodar, where vigils of frustration mingle with the acrid smell of gasoline. This striking image clashes harshly with Russian President Vladimir Putin's vision of a swift and decisive victory that would solidify his grip on power and restore a friendly regime in Ukraine, a dream that has morphed into a nightmare. For years have slipped away, and instead of a quick surrender from Ukraine, Russia finds itself ensnared in a brutal war of attrition, both on the front line and within its own borders. In the wake of Ukrainian strikes that have targeted at least 16 out of 38 Russian oil refineries, including a devastating attack on the Ryazan facility, one of the largest suppliers to Moscow, the ramifications are palpable. Just days ago, the continuous drone assaults led to flames erupting from the processing units, filling the air with thick smoke and panic. This perilous strike has not only crippled the plant's operations but has also ignited fears of dwindling resources at the pumps, endangering the daily lives of countless Russians. The sound of sirens piercing the night air echoes the reality that yet another drone has successfully evaded defenses. The Dagnatek refinery, located far from earlier targets, now reflects an unexpected vulnerability, as fires rage in Makhachkala, Dagestan, disrupting crucial military logistics for the Caucasus region. The strike on this seemingly insignificant facility has larger implications. How does a nation defend itself when its very veins of energy are under siege? The dismal prospects for Russia don't stop there. With the Orenburg gas processing plant and the Bashnef oil refinery also suffering substantial damage, the nation faces murky waters ahead. Experts warn that strikes during the summer months, when demand peaks, could lead to a logistical disaster. Has Ukraine's strategy taken it too far? With retail fuel prices soaring, an increase of over 12% in a year, the discontent among the populace begins to rise to dangerous levels. Putin's Kremlin is acutely aware that such unrest can ignite the spirit of rebellion, just as it did in Kazakhstan following a spike in fuel prices. History serves as a reminder, discontent can swiftly spiral into chaos. With whispers of revolution hanging in the air, the Russian leadership is urged to act, banning exports of gasoline and diesel in a desperate bid to stabilize the situation. But how long can such measures hold back the tide of dissatisfaction when each passing day only deepens the wounds? As citizens navigate the uncertainty, one question remains: how much longer can everyday Russians endure the burdens of a war that keeps on giving? Each strike brings not just economic turmoil but a creeping fear of the unrest that could rise in response. Can the Kremlin quench the fires of rebellion before they ignite? Time alone will tell. Imagine if an energy giant, once overflowing with fuel, suddenly scraped the bottom of the barrel. Will Russia's desperate imports from allies crumble under the weight of its own mistakes, or will a hidden twist reveal a lifeline choking in red tape? Picture the acrid smoke lingering in the air, the distant rumble of distant refineries echoing like ghostly warnings. Rails groaned under the newfound weight of Belarusian gasoline speeding to Russia's starving pumps. In just 1 month, September's rail shipments quadrupled to an astounding 49,000 metric tons, or 14,500 barrels per day. Transit through ports crept up by 1%, hitting 140,000 tons. Was this enough to plug the leaks from Ukraine's relentless strikes? The bitter sting of sharp price increases bit hard, queues snaking endlessly, engines sputtering in vain. Ordinary Russians felt the grit of empty pumps under their palms, the chill of waiting in fog-shrouded lines. Yet, a shocking revelation twisted the knife. Belarus, not so long ago Russia's modest supplier, now exported at this frantic pace. But could it scale up without shattering under the strain? Belarus's two titans, the Naftan and Moser refineries, each capable of churning out 240,000 barrels per day annually, usually hummed at 180,000. Russia gulped down 3.8 million barrels daily, crude, gasoline, diesel, aviation fuel, the works. In 2023, gasoline alone swallowed 869,000 barrels a day. That modest September haul barely scratched 2% of the thirst. The queues screamed louder, pumps gasping dry. Belarus, sipping just 24,000 barrels domestically, theoretically could flood Russia with 150,000 more daily. Early October brought damning estimates from Kommersant, Russia's financial watchdog, a yawning shortage of 400,000 tons out of a million-ton monthly norm, 20% gone. 150,000 barrels from Belarus could quench the fire, easing the nationwide squeeze. But would logistics succor or suffocate? How long to thread this needle? How long before the flow faltered, unraveling the fragile web? Amid the chaos, Russia erupted with unprecedented fury, no longer the exporter pouring riches from endless container ships. Before the war, scant whispers of imports trickled in, mostly poultry from Belarus. Now, desperation clawed deeper. Early October, Vice Premier Alexander Novak slashed import duties on gasoline from China, South Korea, Singapore to zero, from 5%. Exclusive checkpoints in the Far East funneled the precious liquid to bedded giants like Rosneft, NNK, JSC, and the State Foreign Trade Enterprise. The metallic clang of container ships docking whispered of rebirth, or a mirage shimmering in the heat of unyielding attacks. What if these exotic imports turned toxic, sabotaged by unseen foes? How could Putin dodge the upheaval of slipping support, as fuel pains ignited dormant rage across his empire? Feel the tremble of unrest brewing, like thunder before the storm. Will Russia's gambit buy time, or will Ukraine's drones strike a final blow, exposing a farce of invincibility crumbling into ash? In an astonishing turn of events, Ukraine's drone strikes have escalated into a tactical nightmare for Russia, targeting oil refineries deep within its borders. What if I told you that the world's energy powerhouse is now grappling with crippling fuel shortages, as burning flames from struck facilities illuminate the night sky and create a sense of impending chaos? This is a conflict that has shifted dramatically, far from the swift victory Putin anticipated in the early days of the invasion. Since August, Ukrainian forces have brazenly attacked 16 out of 38 of Russia's oil refineries, resulting in significant disruptions to the Russian energy supply. The Ryazan oil refinery was severely hit on October 23, leading to a fire that rendered multiple processing units inoperative. This facility alone was responsible for processing 13.1 million tons of oil in previous years, yet now faces an uncertain future. The repercussions extend beyond Ryazan, as similar strikes target other crucial facilities, leaving a trail of destruction that has forced many regions to confront fuel shortages. The situation grows dire, and the fallout is palpable. As operations at the Makhachkala refinery in Dagestan were suspended, analysts noted that these attacks are not just minor irritants but signs of a much larger systemic issue within Russia's energy sector. The Orenburg gas processing plant, the world's largest gas chemical complex, also suffered from this barrage, with one strike resulting in massive fires that choked the air with smoke and despair. Amidst this turmoil, experts like Dr. Richard Connolly emphasize the importance of timing. While previous attacks were spread throughout winter, the summer strikes now target a peak demand period. With people traveling and farmers in need of fuel, the situation is ripe for disaster. As Russia's refining output struggles to meet local demands, retail gasoline prices have skyrocketed, forcing ordinary citizens to bear the brunt of the war's consequences. In an unforeseen twist, as the pressure mounts, Russian officials have taken desperate measures, banning the export of gasoline and diesel to ensure local availability. Yet, will these moves be enough to quell the brewing unrest among citizens? As Putin's control appears to wane, echoes of past uprisings loom large, reminiscent of the unrest in Kazakhstan sparked by fuel price increases. More strikingly, despite the Kremlin's attempts to project strength and unity, murmurs of discontent are beginning to surface among the public. With mounting frustrations over drying fuel supplies and soaring prices, can Putin maintain his grip on power, or is the facade of stability crumbling under the weight of these relentless Ukrainian strikes? As the landscape of warfare shifts, we're left to ponder the chilling reality. Could Ukraine's efforts to diminish Russia's energy capabilities signal a turning point in this ongoing conflict? As the temperatures drop and winter approaches, the stakes have never been higher for both nations. The time has come to explore the deeper implications of this energy war and what it means for the future of the region. Will desperation drive Russia to retaliate in unexpected ways, or can Ukraine exploit this moment to gain further ground? The answers might be more shocking than we anticipate. Imagine an energy titan on the brink of collapse, once bursting with abundance, now desperately scraping the bottom of an empty barrel. Will Russia's urgent imports from allies buckle under their own mounting failures, or will an unexpected twist offer a glimmer of hope entangled in bureaucratic red tape? Picture the acrid smoke hanging thick in the air, the distant hum of refineries echoing ominous warnings, as the ground beneath trembles with unyielding tension. In September, rail shipments of gasoline from Belarus to Russia surged fourfold, reaching a staggering 49,000 metric tons, around 14,500 barrels a day. This frantic increase came just as ships maneuvered through ports, moving slowly but steadily, marking a 1% rise to 140,000 tons. But was this flood of fuel enough to stem the torrential leak caused by Ukraine's unrelenting drone strikes? The bitter pinch of soaring prices struck hard against ordinary people. Long queues coiled like serpents outside gas stations, engines sputtering as if mocking their owners' desperation. Everywhere, Russians felt the grit of dry pumps grating against their hands, the chill of waiting, as fog enveloped their lingering hopes. Yet, as the tension thickened, a shocking truth emerged. Belarus, once a mere trickle of support, had transformed into a lifeline, exporting fuel at breakneck speeds. The two oil behemoths, Nafta and Moser, typically produced 240,000 barrels daily, though they averaged only 180,000 in recent months. With Russia gulping down a staggering 3.8 million barrels of fuel each day, crude, gasoline, diesel, the October numbers painted a grim scenario. Gasoline alone consumed 869,000 barrels daily, leaving the September influx barely scratching the surface of Russia's insatiable thirst. As the lines for gas grew longer, and the pumps gasped for mercy, Belarus theoretically could have sent an additional 150,000 barrels a day to relieve some pressure, but could they handle the strain? By early October, alarming assessments from Kommersant highlighted a dire shortage, 400,000 tons missing from a million-ton monthly quota, 20% vanished into thin air. Could Belarus's additional exports heal the gaping wound, or would the logistics implode under the strain? In the midst of this chaos, Russia erupted with unprecedented fury, no longer the confident exporter drowning in riches. Before the war, Russia scarcely imported anything, but now, desperation clawed deeper into its flesh. By early October, a bold move from Vice Premier Alexander Novak saw import duties on gasoline from China, South Korea, and Singapore axed from 5% to 0%. Exclusive checkpoints across the Far East began funneling vital supplies to giants like Rosneft and NNK. The metallic clang of container ships docking hinted at either a rebirth of hope or a mirage shimmering just out of reach amidst ongoing assaults. What if these international imports turned toxic, undermined by unseen enemies? As fuel shortages ignited the flames of anger among the populace, how could Putin evade the wave of discontent brewing beneath the surface? Feel the electricity in the air, thick with the impending storm of unrest. Will Russia's desperate gambit buy the necessary time? Or will Ukraine's relentless drone strikes deliver the fatal blow, revealing the facade of invincibility crumbling to dust?